Welcome back to Drafting with Mark, and in this video we're going to take a look at putting dimensions and a title block around this one. So I decided that I'm going to use the annotation scale when I create this one, but what I want to show you in this video is how to do chain dimensioning as well as baseline dimensioning. So we're going to take a look at both of those, plus we're going to also talk about doing the normal stuff that we usually do, like center lines and things of that nature. Now keep in mind that this is a metric drawing, so I will convert it over to inches. So stay tuned for that, and let's go ahead and get started. So when I originally created this, I decided to dimension it this way. Now, there's not going to be any one particular way that you're going to dimension a drawing, and you're going to see that anytime that you start in this career or if you're a beginning drafter. So there is no real go-by book on how to dimension things. There are always recommendations on how you should do it. For example, these numbers here, these can be also called out with a chamfer. So if I didn't want to put this 13 by 13, I could have easily called that out with a chamfer saying that it is a 13 by 45 degrees. Likewise, on my big chamfer here in the middle, I don't have to have these dimensions that point to it. I can just call it out and show you what those are. So I'm going to show you that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and put some leaders and some other things on here. So I'm not going to follow particularly this dimensioning style. I'm just going to give you more options on how you can dimension things. So I'm going to kind of go back and forth. We're going to do some chain dimensions. We may delete some of that stuff, but I'm going to try to go over all of this stuff in particular so it gives you a better understanding of how you can dimension in AutoCAD. And once again, I will repeat this, is that there is no kind of go by or any kind of standard on how you can do this stuff, right? There is recommendations on how you should, and there are some rules on how you definitely should not do things, but there is no recommendation. All right, let's switch over to AutoCAD and get started. Okay, so if you haven't saw me create this, please refer to the video where I go step by step in how I created this. But in this video, let's go ahead and shrink this down and get it to inches. So if you remember that I made this thing using millimeters, right? So this is 70, or we can say that, hey, those are 70 inches or things of that nature. So there's a lot of different ways, but I'm just going to assume that they're millimeters just so I can show you how to scale these things down, right? So let's first go to the scale command. And we're going to take a look at scale. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of this. So I'm just going to highlight this, hit enter. Always pick your base point. So where you want to stretch this thing from, you know, I want it to grow or shrink from a certain point. So I'm just going to select this midpoint here. And now you can see when I move my cursor, it's going to either shrink or it's going to grow to that. Now the scale factor for anytime you're shrinking things down to inches is 1. So it's 1 inch divided by 25.4, and that's going to be the millimeter. So I need to shrink this downward, right? The way if I do that, if I type in 1 divided by 25.4, remember that AutoCAD is not going to be able to recognize that. So if I do this and I hit enter, it should give me an error message and say, hey, I don't know anything about that. You need to give me a distance that I know. You can either pull out your calculator or you can use the calculator function in your command line, right? So I can go apostrophe CAL. And remember that that apostrophe says that, hey, stay inside of the scale command, but use the calculator function. So apostrophe CAL, go ahead and hit enter. And now it's asking me to type my expression. So I can type in the 1 divided by 25.4. And AutoCAD should be able to do the math on that now. So once I hit enter, it's going to scale it down. And now this is now shrunk to the right location or the right size. Next thing I'm going to do, let's go ahead and put this on an A size drawing, right? So remember the dimensions for an A size is 11 by 8.5. So I'm going to start off with a rectangle. It's going to ask me for my lower left point. I'm just going to type in 0, 0, hit enter. And then it's going to ask me for my upper right corner, right? So I'm going to type in 11 since I want to go 11 in the x-axis, comma, 8.5. So once I type in those numbers, I should get that 11 by 8.5 title block. All right, let's kind of zoom into this. So first, before I do anything else, let's move this down. Let's go ahead and move. I'm going to select my shape that I kind of scaled down here. Go ahead and hit enter. Pick a base point somewhere near it, and I'm just going to move this over here. Let's go ahead and turn our ortho off. Select there, and I'll put it somewhere close on the inside of here. All right, I'm just going to double click the middle mouse button to zoom in, or you can Go ahead and select that icon there. All right, now that I have my shape here, let's go ahead and do some offsets, right? So I'm just going to offset this to the inside. I'm going to go to offset. The normal distance that you should offset to the inside of your title block should be a minimum of about 1/4 of an inch. Anything bigger than that should be, you know, you're starting to get less and less of your drawing paper. So I've seen most people use anywhere from 0.25 all the way up to 0.5. So I'm just going to use an offset of 0.25. Go ahead and hit enter. Select your title block here and offset to the inside. All right, the good news is that our title block looked like it fits what I need it to do, right? But I'm going to help myself out a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and turn this title block into an actual block. What that's going to do is give me more control over how I can scale this title block up and down. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select both of these lines. Then I'm going to hit the create button here. I'm waiting on the dialog box to come up, and I'm just going to give it a name. I called it TB. It automatically has my lower left corner picked at 000 because that's where I created it from. And it also have already selected the two objects that I have. So I pre-selected those and I selected the create button. You can also see here that now I have a preview or a thumbnail of what I need, right? I can allow exploding and other things of that nature, and it is in inches. So I'm just going to hit OK. And now this is created as a block now, right? So if I select one of these, both of them should highlight. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to select my title block here, do a right click, and then I'm going to bring open properties. Now this should open up a dialog box here on the left. Yours may be somewhere else, but this is typically what you're going to see. The numbers that I'm looking for is scale X, scale Y, and scale Z. I can either shrink this object down or I can make it bigger, right? So let's go ahead and make this just a little bit smaller. So I'm going to type in 0.75. Go ahead and hit the tab button twice and 0.75. Right? Now, you've seen that, and I hit the escape button a little too quick for you. You see that I also left that the Z scale is set to 1. We're creating 2D drawings, so that's actually irrelevant. You don't need to worry about a Z axis because we created this as a 2D title block. So you can put a number there, or you can just leave it at what it is. All right, next, let's go ahead and move this down and get it better into position. Alright, so now we have our scale factor set at 0.75. Depending on what you want to use, if you're in paper space or if you're going to do this in model space, remember model space, I have two different options that I like to use. There's a standard feature where you do all of the stuff, you put in all of the numbers that you need, and I discussed that in some previous videos, or you can use the annotation option. If we use annotation option, I want you to take a look at some. If I click the fly up here, there is no 0.75 that I can select here, right? If I select any of these other numbers, it's gonna do something differently. Well, I want it to be 0.75. So let's go ahead and create a customized one, and I'll show you how to do that now. Okay, so there are several ways you can think about this when you're creating these. It depends on kind of your understanding of how you look at scale factors and annotation. And I'm gonna give you some examples of that. So anytime I'm looking at any of these metric ones, for example, if we were setting this at a 20 scale, always look at the number on the left and the number on the right. So if you think about it in this way, you probably won't confuse yourself too much. The number on the right side is going to be your numerator, and the number on the left side will be your denominator. And let's see if I can pull up a pen to kind of show you what I'm talking about. So if I have something set at a 1, let's go ahead and put the 2 colons here, and it's set to a 20, and once again I'm gonna remind you that my handwriting may be a little bad when I'm kind of drawing this on, but I have a 1 to 20. If you think about it this way, you probably won't mess up or miss it too much. So I'll take the number on the right side, and that's going to be my numerator, and then I divide it by the number on the left side, and that'll be my denominator, right? So that's going to leave me a scale of 20. If you pulled out your calculator and you put 20 divided by 1, you should get 20. Likewise with any other number. So if I had a scale set to 1/2, right? And I take this same principle and I apply it, then it says that I want this to equal to 1/2. Therefore, I have a number of 2 on one side, and then I have a number of 1 on the other side, right? Because when I divide this out, it should be 1, because the number on the right side is my numerator, the number on my left side is my denominator, and that's going to be divided by 2. Now remind you that in this one, we scaled this thing down to 0.75. 0.75 in a fraction is 3/4. So that should make it really nice and easy when I go ahead and create this, is that I know what my numerator is and I know what my denominator is. So I can go ahead and set up one that says it is 4 divided by 3. And if I do it this way, and I place this over here when I create it, it should give me the right scale factor that I'm going to need. All right, so let's go ahead and create that now. Let me go ahead and get rid of all of my drawing here on my pen and then jump down to it. So I'm going to click the fly up, I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to select custom. Now the way this is work, it has paper units on one side and drawing units on the other side. So remember, you still got it divided in left and right, and it's going to apply the same principle. So I'm going to go ahead and add one. Now another neat feature that you can use, if you know that you want to place this between something, for example, I know mine is going to be 4 divided by 3. Say I want it to be placed in between here. So I'm going to highlight this one first. I'll go to add, and then I'm going to tell it that it is a 4:3. So that's going to be the way I'm going to set this up. On the left side, I have 4 units, and the drawing units are set to 3. So if we divide this out using that example that I gave you before, 3 is my numerator, 4 is my denominator, right? This is set up, and this is the way it's going to appear. I'll go ahead and hit the OK button, and now you're going to see that it did put that 4 divided by 3 right underneath here. So that's kind of what I need. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And now that's going to appear down here in my box. So I'm going to go ahead and select it here, and then I'm going to click on this one. So now this becomes my annotation scale, right? Let's go ahead and start doing some drawing stuff. So now this is set up. Let's go ahead and go to our annotate, and then I have my center mark. So I'm going to select center mark, and then I can put my center marks on here. I'm going to select this big circle here, this one here, and then I'll select my 2 smaller circles. Alright, so now my center marks are created. We're ready to go ahead and put dimensions on this. So let's go to our dimension style. You can hit D, enter on your keyboard, or I can select this little drop down here. Once I select it here, since I'm using this annotation scale at the bottom, I'm just going to double click on annotated. Let's go ahead and go to modify. And then some of the things I like to do is, since I already have my center marks already placed onto my drawings, underneath these symbols and arrows, I'll go ahead and change this to none, since we don't need any of that stuff going on. On this one, we'll leave the text. This is kind of big for what I usually like to do. Let's go ahead and make this 0.125. Underneath the fit, remember that since we're using annotative, we have no need to worry about any of this stuff. Underneath our primary units, this is going to be measuring in inches, right? So depending on how many numbers of inches do I want to display, and let's go ahead and say that I want to display, let's call it 2 for my inches. Underneath the annotation option, let's go ahead and display these alternate units, and then you can see that it's going to display them. I want these to be whole numbers, so I'm going to go ahead and put a 0 suppression on that. And do I want them to come after it or below it? So I'm going to go ahead and select below. And then I'm going to go back to the, let's see, it's not the symbols and arrows tab. It should be underneath. And let me go find out where that's at. The text tab here. So let's go to the text tab. And where it says offset from dimension line, if I want to close this gap in between here, let's go ahead and make this number like 0.03 and go ahead and hit enter. And now you're going to see that that gets a little bit closer. So that just shows it a little bit better. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit close. And then let's close it here. Alright, so now we're ready to go ahead and put some dimensions on here. So if I go ahead and put my first dimension on, and I'm just going to use a regular dimension, a linear dimension from this endpoint here to that endpoint. And when I go over here and I place my dimension, you see that I do get the dual dimensions, right? Next thing I'm going to do is I want to go ahead and use a dimension. So let's go to the baseline drop down. And remember that the first point that you selected, you'll notice that I selected this endpoint first and then that one. It's going to assume that all of my first endpoints are going to be the one that I want to use. So I'm going to go ahead and select this endpoint now. Alright, likewise here on the top, I'm going to go back to a linear dimension. I'm going to start with this one. So the first one that I click with is going to be the start of my baseline dimension. And then I'll click here. So that defines my linear dimension. And then when I select baseline, it's going to automatically start at the first one I picked. And then I can go and select that endpoint there. Alright, so this works fine. And if you like this dimensioning style, and this is probably the way I would have went with it, but I'm going to show you just the continue option as well. So I'm going to go ahead and erase a couple of dimensions here just to give you the options here on the top. So maybe if I wanted to do this a little differently, I can use a linear dimension. I can go from this endpoint to this endpoint. Let's go ahead and place that dimension. And then if you want to use the continue option, it's going to continue off of the last dimension that you selected, right? So if I go to continue, it should go from my last one, and then I can click this endpoint, then I can click this endpoint, right? So it'll keep going as long as I keep selecting them. Now, I want to show you another option here that maybe I didn't select these the right way. So meaning that I selected them incorrectly. Let's go ahead and delete these. And then I'm going to go back to the linear dimension here. And then I'm going to select this endpoint first, followed by this endpoint. And I'll go ahead and select here. And then if I wanted to use that continue option, I'm going to go to continue. And you're going to see that it goes from my last point. Now, don't hit escape or go ahead and delete dimensions. Just come down to your command line, select the word select, and then select this endpoint here, right? So I'm just going to select that side, and then it's going to allow you to keep on going. So that's one of those things that you can kind of do and you go, okay, I don't want to stop my command. Just always select the select button at the bottom. You can also do that exact same thing with the baseline dimension. So I can go to linear. I can go ahead and place these dimensions here. And then I can go ahead and use the baseline, and it's going to assume that that's the one I want to choose. And I go, nope, that's not what I want. Choose the select and say I want this to be my baseline start point. And that's going to allow you to select all of these other things. Now, when it comes to creating leaders and things of that nature, they move certain commands over time, and there is one that's called a quick leader, and that's probably the easiest one to get to, but I can type it in. I'm just going to type in QL, and that's a shortcut for quick leader. And then what it's going to ask me is go ahead and select my first point here, right? So I can select here, and I can go ahead and place it here. So I did 2 clicks, and then I'm just going to hit enter. In a minute, I actually hit 2 buttons there. Let me go ahead and undo that. Just enter. Go back to quick leader. I'm going to select here, and then I'm going to select here, and then I'm going to hit enter. And now it's asking me for what's the width of my text that I want to do. So I can just click it out to about here. That's about fine. Then I can type in. So I can type in this as, and I know it in millimeters. I didn't figure out the equivalent of that yet, but it's, 13 by 45. And remember that we have to use the diameter symbol here. So %, and that's going to be a D. Go ahead and hit enter, and one more enter, and then it should create your text, right? So this is it in millimeters. If I wanted to find out the decimal equivalent to that, what I usually do is I'll come to linear, and then I'll go ahead and place a linear dimension on here, and I can see that it's 0.51. So therefore, I'll come back and edit this dimension. I'm just typing in edit. I'll click here. It's going to give me the dialog box. Go ahead and hit enter, and then start above this, and then I'll just type in 0.51 by 45 % D. And actually, there should not be a gap behind that. Okay. And then what I'll also do is I'll put this in brackets. So I'm just going to use the brackets. There we go. Just to make it look like my other standard dimensions, right? Go ahead and close that. And now I see that I have this. Another thing that you can see in the quick leaders is that this is underneath it. I probably should have changed that. So in the quick leaders, underneath these settings in here, there's ways that you can control this landing. So for example, that my attachments is set to the top of the middle line. I should have made both of them, you know, middle of top line there. But it'll do that right for the next one, but you can kind of see where I'm kind of following with this one. So you'll see it on this one. Let's go ahead and place that dimension on here. So I'm going to place a dimension from this line here. And it already gives me that that is a 30 by, you know, 1.8 by 45 degrees. Let's go back to our quick leader option. So QL. Go ahead and click on this line here. Click here. Enter. Give me this that I need. Then it's ready to type. 0.18 by 45% D. All right, let's go ahead and edit that, and then go ahead and put the equivalent underneath it. Once again, put this in brackets, and this is 30 by 45% D. And then close the bracket. All right, then I can go ahead and get rid of this dimension. So everything else on here can be, you know, pretty much straightforward with dimensions. So I can use a linear dimension. Remember that if I want to dimension a continuous line here, I can go ahead and hit enter, and then I can select this line, place that dimension. Likewise here on the bottom one, so linear, go ahead and hit enter. I can place that on this line. The other two things I have is I have a couple of radial dimensions. So I can go to radius. I can click here, place that dimension here. I'm just going to hit the enter button to take me back to the last command, and I can do this one here. All right. One thing I have on this one is that I have this is in 2 places, and then this one is in 4 places, so I can go ahead and edit those. I'm just using ED, enter. Go ahead and go to this one. I usually hit the home button on my keyboard here, and then I'll type in 2X. Go ahead and click off of it, and then I'll go and click this one. Once again, hit the home button, 4X. All right, and that should be how this one is dimensioned. So this one is not a bad or hard one to dimension, but I wanted to give you different options on how you can create other dimensions on this. So there is not one given way of doing that, and I hope I probably trying to beat a dead horse with this is just reiterating that, is that there's no right or wrong ways of doing it, but well, there's no no right way of doing it. There's definitely some wrong ways. All right, so if you like this video and you like seeing me do dimensions and other things of that nature, please let me know in the comments, and I'll try to do more videos where I'm showing you different dimensioning styles and different tricks. You know, maybe later on we'll come in, we could have defined what a multi-leader was, and I'll kind of look at that in some other videos. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed this one, and until the next time, thank you.